The boardroom was silent, save for the faint hum of the air conditioning and the occasional rustle of papers. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Cascade Innovation's Seattle headquarters, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany table. I sat at the head, my hands folded calmly, my face a mask of composure. Across from me, my brother Ethan fidgeted, his tailored suit suddenly looking too tight, his confident smirk faltering. My parents, Margaret and Harold, sat beside him, their expressions a mix of pride and anticipation, oblivious to the storm about to break. They thought they were here to witness my downfall. They thought Ethan's meticulously crafted lies, forged documents, whispered rumors, and a dossier designed to paint me as a fraud would end my career. They didn't know I held the winning hand. They didn't know I owned the table, the room, the entire company. My name is Lauren Harper, though in the biotech world, I'm known simply as L. Harper, Chief Innovation Officer at Cascade Innovations, a firm revolutionizing gene editing therapies. What my family doesn't know, what no one outside a trusted circle knows, is that 6 months ago, I became Cascade's majority shareholder, quietly acquiring control through a labyrinth of trusts and shell companies. The path to this moment began 20 years ago, in a cramped dorm room at MIT, where I was a scholarship kid scraping by on grit and caffeine. It's a story of betrayal, ambition, and the kind of revenge that doesn't shout but whispers, undeniable and absolute. Stick with me, because what started as a family's attempt to sabotage me turned into the ultimate power move. And if you're into tales of quiet resilience and hard-won triumph, you're in for a ride. It all began in a small town outside Atlanta, where I grew up as the overlooked middle child in a family that worshipped appearances. My father, Harold, was a retired insurance salesman who spent his days dreaming of golf club memberships he couldn't afford. My mother, Margaret, was a homemaker with a knack for social climbing, always chasing invitations to the right dinners. My younger brother, Ethan, was their golden boy, charming, athletic, destined for greatness. Then there was me, the quiet one, the bookworm who preferred dissecting biology textbooks to attending pep rallies. "Lauren's so serious," Mom would say with a sigh, as if my focus was a flaw. "Ethan's the one with potential." Potential. That word followed Ethan like a halo. When he got into Stanford on a partial scholarship funded by our parents' savings and a second mortgage, I was already at MIT, covering my tuition with grants, loans, and late-night coding gigs. "Ethan needs our support," Dad would say when I called home, asking for help with textbooks. "You've always been so self-sufficient, Lauren." Self-sufficient didn't cover it. I worked 2 jobs, tutored rich kids who barely showed up, and sold freelance software to startups just to eat. Meanwhile, Ethan posted photos from Napa Valley wine tours and yacht parties in Santa Barbara, his carefree life bankrolled by our parents' sacrifices. I didn't resent him, not at first. I loved Ethan even if he never quite saw me. He was my little brother, the kid who'd once followed me around our backyard, begging to join my science experiments with baking soda and vinegar. But as we grew older, the gap widened. Ethan leaned into the role of the family star, while I became the shadow, reliable, invisible, expected to cheer from the sidelines. "You should talk to Ethan," Mom said during one of our rare Sunday calls. "He's got connections now. He could help you get a real job." A real job. As if my late nights in MIT's bioengineering lab, my patents pending on gene editing algorithms, were just a hobby. By the time I was 28, I'd launched my first startup, HelixCore, a biotech firm specializing in CRISPR-based therapies. I kept my name off the press releases, letting my co-founder take the spotlight while I worked behind the scenes. When we sold HelixCore for $75 million 3 years later, I funneled my share into a private trust, staying silent. Why? Because I'd seen what money did to people. I'd watched my parents fawn over Ethan's mid-level sales job at a tech firm, praising his stability, while dismissing my work as too complicated to explain. I'd heard Ethan's casual jabs at family dinners, "Lauren's still playing with test tubes, huh?" And I knew that wealth, if flaunted, would poison what little connection we had left. So I stayed quiet, building in the shadows. My second startup, Genix Labs, sold for $200 million when I was 32. Again, I kept my name out of the headlines, using proxies and holding companies to mask my involvement. I bought a modest condo in Seattle, drove a used Subaru, and let my family believe I was just another overworked scientist scraping by. "You should settle down, Lauren," Mom said at Thanksgiving, her eyes flicking to Ethan's new Rolex, a gift from his latest bonus. Ethan's got a plan. You don't want to be stuck in a lab forever. I smiled, nodded, and said nothing, my mind already on my next move. Cascade Innovations. Cascade was a diamond in the rough. A biotech firm with groundbreaking research but a bloated board and a stock price languishing from mismanagement. I joined as a senior strategist 2 years ago, keeping my head down, learning the company's inner workings. Behind the scenes, I was orchestrating a takeover. Using a web of trust, Transglobal Holdings, Pacific Crest Ventures, Harper Strategic Partners, I began buying shares, discreetly, relentlessly. By last spring, I owned 52% of Cascade, enough to call the shots. When the board named me Chief Innovation Officer 3 months ago, they thought they were rewarding a loyal employee. They didn't know they were handing the reins to the company's new owner. Ethan's reaction was predictable. "Congrats, sis," he said over Zoom, his smile tight. "Big step up. Hope you're ready for the pressure. Corporate life's not like your little lab experiments." Mom chimed in, ever helpful. "Maybe Ethan could give you some pointers. He's been managing teams for years." Dad just nodded, his eyes on Ethan, as if my promotion was a fluke, a temporary glitch in the family hierarchy. I thanked them politely, my fingers tracing the edge of the acquisition papers locked in my desk drawer. If only they knew. The first sign of trouble came a month later, at Cascade's annual strategy retreat in Whidbey Island. I just presented a plan to pivot our research toward rare genetic disorders, a move that could save thousands of lives and triple our valuation. The board was ecstatic, but as I mingled with executives over coffee, I noticed Ethan lingering near the bar, chatting up our VP of Operations, Carla Reyes. He was all charm, perfect teeth, easy laugh, but his questions were too pointed. "How's Lauren handling the new role?" he asked, his voice carrying just enough to reach me. "Big shoes to fill, right?" Carla, loyal but unsuspecting, shrugged. "She's killing it. Data-driven, focused." "Why?" Ethan's smile didn't waver. "Just checking on my sister. She's always been intense. Hope she's not in over her head." I sipped my coffee, watching him work the room, dropping subtle doubts like breadcrumbs. By the end of the night, he'd spoken to 3 department heads, each conversation laced with concern for poor Lauren and her steep learning curve. I said nothing, but I started paying attention. Back in Seattle, the whispers grew. Anonymous emails landed in HR's inbox, alleging I'd overstated my credentials. A blog post on an obscure industry site questioned my MIT degree, citing sources close to the company. All baseless, all easily debunked. I'd kept every transcript, every diploma, every patent filing in a fireproof safe since college, but the intent was clear. Someone was testing the waters, probing for weaknesses. When I traced the blog post's IP address to a co-working space in San Francisco, where Ethan's firm had an office, I wasn't surprised. I was curious. I confronted him over dinner at our parents' house, a rare gathering where Mom had insisted on reconnecting. Ethan arrived late, his Tesla parked crookedly in the driveway, his hair gelled to perfection. "Heard you've been busy," I said casually, passing the mashed potatoes. "Dropping by Cascade, chatting with my team." His fork paused midair, but he recovered quickly. "Just looking out for you, sis. Tech's a Shark Tank. You're new to the C-suite. People talk." "People talk," I echoed, holding his gaze. "Like about my degree? Or my hiring process?" His eyes flickered, but he laughed it off. "You're paranoid. Look, I'm proud of you, okay? But you've got to admit you're moving fast. Some folks might wonder if you're ready." Mom jumped in, oblivious. "He's right, sweetheart. Ethan's just worried. You've always pushed yourself so hard." I smiled, letting the moment pass. Ethan thought he was playing chess. He didn't realize I was 3 moves ahead. The real blow came a week later, delivered in a manila envelope to the board's chairman, Victor Lang. Inside was a dossier straight out of a corporate thriller. Forged bank statements suggesting I'd siphoned company funds, altered emails implying I'd leaked trade secrets, and a timeline accusing me of insider trading. It was meticulous, malicious, and almost convincing except for one flaw. I'd spent years building safeguards, documenting every transaction, every email, every decision. The forgeries were good, but they weren't perfect. Victor called me that evening, his voice grim. "Lauren, we've received something troubling. Allegations about your conduct. We're holding an emergency meeting Friday. You should be there." I thanked him, my pulse steady. "Who else is invited?" I asked. A pause. "Your brother reached out. Said he has insights. He's bringing your parents." Of course he was. Ethan didn't just want me fired. He wanted an audience. That night I sat in my condo, the Seattle skyline glittering beyond my window, and built my own dossier. Every late-night call with Ethan, every casual visit to Cascade, every anonymous tip documented, time-stamped, cross-referenced. I pulled server logs showing the forged emails originated from a VPN linked to Ethan's firm. I compiled recordings from Cascade's security system, capturing his conversations with staff, his voice dripping with false concern. And then there was the ace. TransGlobal Holdings ownership records, ready to reveal I wasn't just that I was the company's backbone. At dinner the next evening, Ethan was electric, practically vibrating with anticipation. "Big day tomorrow," he announced, slicing into his steak. "The board's making some changes at Cascade. Asked me to weigh in." Mom's eyes lit up. "That's wonderful, Ethan. They must value your perspective." Dad nodded, his chest puffed out. "You've always had a knack for leadership." Neither asked why I, the supposed subject of this meeting, hadn't been invited. I sipped my wine, my silence louder than their chatter. Friday morning, I arrived at Cascade at 7 a.m., 2 hours early. From my office, I watched Ethan stride into the lobby at 8:45, his suit pristine, his gait confident. Mom and Dad followed, dressed for a coronation hearse, a navy blazer and pearls. His a tie Ethan had probably picked. "Is the board ready?" Ethan asked the receptionist, his voice carrying through the glass. She nodded, escorting them to the executive conference room on the 20th floor. The board arrived soon after, their faces tight, their briefcases heavy with the dossier Ethan had sent. I'd emailed them my own instructions the night before. Say nothing, follow my lead. At 9 a.m., I walked into the conference room, my heels clicking against the hardwood. Victor was speaking, his tone grave. Extremely serious allegations against MS. Harper, he stopped as I entered, taking my seat at the head of the table. Ethan's head snapped up, his smirk faltering. "Lauren, this is a closed session," he said, his voice sharp. "You weren't invited." I smiled, folding my hands. Hard to hold a board meeting without the company's owner. The room froze. Ethan's jaw slackened. Mom blinked, her pearls suddenly too tight. Dad coughed, his face reddening. "What are you talking about?" Ethan sputtered. "Cascade's public. Shareholders own it." "Correction," I said, nodding to my assistant, Priya, who began distributing folders. "Cascade was public until 6 months ago, when TransGlobal Holdings acquired 52% of its shares. Care to guess who controls TransGlobal?" I watched as the board flipped through the documents, their eyes widening. Some had suspected a silent investor, but none had connected it to Menet, the quiet strategist who'd spent years blending into the background. "This is ridiculous," Ethan said, his voice rising. "You can't afford just a scientist." I leaned forward, my smile unwavering. "Just a scientist. Just a coder. Just the sister you've underestimated your entire life." I turned to Priya. "Play the recordings." The room filled with Ethan's voice, smooth and calculated, captured during his casual visits. "Lauren's brilliant, sure, but leadership? She's out of her depth." Another clip. "Have you checked her department's budgets? Might be discrepancies." Every word a dagger, every sentence a betrayal. Ethan sank into his chair, his face ashen. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad stared at the table, unable to meet my eyes. "And then there's this," I said, holding up Ethan's dossier. "Forged statements. Fabricated emails. A timeline accusing me of embezzlement, insider trading, fraud. Did you think I wouldn't trace it back to you?" Ethan's voice cracked. "I was protecting the company. Your note've never been the one who wins." I stood, my voice steady but cold. "No, Ethan. I'm the one who built something real while you played games with lies." I turned to Mom and Dad. "And you? You came here to watch my execution, didn't you? To cheer while your golden boy took me down." Mom's eyes filled with tears. Lauren, we didn't. Save it. I cut in. You've spent years betting on the wrong horse. I faced the board. I apologize for the drama, but you needed to see this for what it is. A coordinated attempt to undermine Cascade's leadership. Ethan's actions, forgery, defamation, corporate espionage put this company at risk. I propose 3 steps. First, a formal statement dismissing all allegations against me as false, backed by verified evidence. Second, a letter to Ethan's employer detailing his misconduct, including these recordings and documents. His actions should follow him. Third, a permanent ban on Ethan, Margaret, and Harold Harper from Cascade property. Any interference will trigger legal action. Victor nodded, his face unreadable. What else, MS? Harper. I sat, my voice calm. That's all for now. Let's move forward cleanly. Ethan's voice broke through, desperate. Lauren, you can't. You'll ruin me. I met his gaze. Like you tried to ruin me? The difference is my evidence is real. Mom sobbed, her mascara streaking. We're family. I laughed, short and bitter. Family doesn't forge documents to destroy you. Family doesn't celebrate your failure. I slid one final folder across the table. This is the sale contract for Helix Core, $75 million, age 28. Genix Labs, $200 million, age 32. I could have bought your dreams, Dad, your golf club, your vacations. I could have funded your life, Ethan. But I stayed quiet to see who'd stand by me when I had nothing. You all failed. The room was silent as I stood, gathering my papers. This meeting's adjourned. Victor, file the documentation. Security will escort my family out. Ethan's voice cracked as I reached the door. Lauren, please. I'm sorry. I was jealous I couldn't handle you winning. I turned, my expression soft but firm. You pushed me down when you thought I was weak. I stayed silent when I was strong. That's the difference, Ethan. The fallout was swift. Ethan's firm fired him within days, citing ethical breaches, after receiving my evidence. Word of my ownership leaked, and suddenly Seattle's elite were whispering my name. Mom and Dad sent voicemails, alternating between apologies and accusations. I archived them unanswered. Cascade meanwhile soared. My pivot to rare disease therapies drew global attention, our stock climbing 40% in weeks. I hired new researchers, expanded our labs, and broke ground on a community clinic for underserved patients, my way of giving back. 3 months later, I was working late when Priya buzzed my office. Someone's here. Says it's personal. I braced myself, expecting another plea from Mom. Instead, Ethan stepped in, a shadow of his former self. No suit, no swagger, just jeans, a plain shirt, and a manila envelope. I'm not staying, he said, his voice low. I just need to say something. He placed the envelope on my desk. This is everything. Passwords, contacts, every move I made against you. I'm sending a letter to my old firm, owning it all. No excuses. I studied him, his face gaunt, his eyes tired but clear. Why now? He exhaled, looking at the skyline beyond my window. Because you were right. I didn't build anything real. You did, and I hated you for it. Letting me fall, it woke me up. He turned to leave, then paused. I'm starting over. Entry level, a small firm. No shortcuts. I don't expect you to care, but I wanted you to know. I nodded, my throat tight. Ethan. He looked back, hope flickering. Send me your resume in a year. Not for a corner office, for a real job. If you're serious, we're always looking for people willing to earn it. His eyes glistened, but he just nodded and left. 6 months later, Cascade is a beacon of innovation. Our therapies saving lives, our name synonymous with hope. I've cut contact with Mom and Dad, their messages now just background noise. Ethan's holiday card arrived last week, simple and unsigned. Learning to build something real. Thank you. I keep it on my desk, a reminder of what was and what could be. Some nights I sit by my office window, the Puget Sound shimmering below, and think about family, ambition, and the strange power of being underestimated. Success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving to yourself you were always enough. So what's your story? Have you been the quiet one building in the shadows? Keep going. Your resilience is your strength, and when the time comes, your victory will speak louder than any pain.
If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.